Dear students, welcome back. I welcome all of you to the online class. Today we are going to learn a poem from our literature book. The poem, The Road Not Taken, written by Robert Frost. I am starting today's class by asking a question. Please listen. A group of children were playing near two railway tracks. Imagine a group of children who were playing near two railway tracks. One railway track is in use. Another one is not in use. Another railway track was not in use. Disused track. Only one child is playing on the track which is not used. Rest of the children are playing on the first track that is in use. Suddenly a train comes. You are just standing beside the track interchange. You can make the train change its course. You can change its course to the disused track, or you can allow it to go straight. Two choices are there for you. First choice, you can make the train go to the disused track. Next choice is, you can let the train to go to the normal track. What would you do? If you change the course of the train to the disused track, only one child will face the problem. But that child is playing on the disused track. The track is not in use. So it is an innocent child. He knows the train will not come through this track. Is it right to allow the train to go through the disused track? Or if you let the train to go straight, what will happen? If you let the train to go straight, a number of children are playing on that track and many children will be killed. Which one will you prefer? You have two choices. You have two choices. Which choice will you prefer? That's the question. In our life, sometimes this type of challenges comes. We cannot select a particular choice. Choices are very important in our life. Which school I will join? Which career I have to choose? Which course I should study? This type of problems related with the choice will happen always in our life. Choices are very important. Look at this sentence. Life presents many choices. The choices we make determine our future. I gave you two choices in the beginning, but you got confused. Which one I will do? Which choice I will prefer? So our life presents many choices. Which one you will prefer that has an important role in our life? The poem Road Not Taken discusses about choices, the importance of choice in our life. It is written by Robert Frost. Let us discuss the poem in detail. Robert Frost is a famous American writer. He was born on 26th March 1874 and died on 29 January 1963. He was a poet and a playwright. His notable works are A Boy's Will, north of Boston. He has written a number of poems and plays. Mostly his poems depict the rural life of England. Let us discuss the poem in detail.
The road not taken. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry, I could not travel both. And be one traveller, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that the passing there had borne them really about the same, and both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference.
Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveller, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. The poet was walking along a road. He was walking along a road, and he reaches a junction. He reaches one junction. The poet reaches a junction where two roads diverged. Diverged means separated and took a different direction. The road diverged means the road separated and took a different direction. Two roads went into different directions. And sorry, I could not travel both. Immediately the poet realizes that as a traveler, traveling both the roads is impossible. He cannot travel on both the roads. Sorry, I could not travel both. So poet was walking, he reaches a junction, and the road diverged into two directions. And poet realizes that he cannot travel on both the roads. Students, here two roads means two ways of life. It goes into two directions. Two choices are there for the poet. And be one traveler long I stood. It is impossible to travel both the roads. The poet stands there and looked down as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Poet stands there. Poet stands at the junction. He looked at one of the roads, trying to see where it goes. The small plants and greenery of woods block his view. He could not see to where it bent the undergrowth. Undergrowth means dense growth of plants and bushes. The poet kept standing there and looked at the path very carefully as far as he could see. Before selecting the path, he wanted to know how it was. Was it suitable for him or not? He was able to see the path till from where it curved, after which it was covered with trees and was hidden. It happens in our life also. When we have choices, we have alternatives, but we have to choose only one out of them. We take time to think about the pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages, then took the other just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that the passing there had warned them really about the same. The poet kept on looking at one path for a long time. For what purpose? To check if it is right path for him or not. But then he decided and started walking on another path. He looked at one road, but he selected the another one. The poet decided to check the other path because he found the other road to be less traveled and grassy one. Because it was grassy and wanted wear. So poet says that both the paths were equally good and started walking on one of them. He felt that the path was better for him. It had grass on it, which means that it was unused. So he selected the unused road. Not many people had walked on this path earlier. That is why this path is grassy. And this road wanted wear. Wanted wear means it was not walked over by many people. After he walked on the path for some distance, he realized that both the paths had been worn out the same day. Though as for that passing there had warned them really about the same. After walking for some time, poet realizes that both the paths were similar and worn out. In our life also we take any path or option, but all of them have the same benefits, same disadvantages, same problems, same challenges, and we must face them. Here the same thing happens to the poet. He looked at one road, selected another one. He selected the grassy road. But after walking some time, he realizes that both the roads are same. And both that morning equally lay. In leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. Trodden means walked over. Poet says that both the paths were similar that morning, and both that morning equally lay. Both had leaves on them. In leaves no step had trodden black. Both had leaves on them, and no one had stepped on them as they were still green in color. And no one had stepped on them. He decided that day he would take one path, and he kept the other path for another day. I kept the first for another day. Another day I will travel through that road. But he is not sure about it. He knew that one way leads on to another way. He knew that he could not go back on the choice that he had made. So I doubted if I should ever come back. He knows the reality, but he kept the another road for another day. But he is not sure. Similarly, even in our life, once we have selected an option, we must go ahead with that option. We never get a chance to come back and take other option. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. He says that in future he will say that once upon a time he had reached such a point in life, and there were two options for him, and he travelled on the road which had been travelled upon by lesser number of people. He selected the road that is less travelled by people. In future he would say with a sigh. Sigh means deep breath. I selected and travelled upon a road that is used by less number of people. And that decision made all the difference. That decision changed his life. Two roads diverged in a wood, and the poet took the one that is less travelled, and that decision had made a change in his life. That means in future when you grow up, then you will say that once upon a time when you were young and you had two options, the choice that you made you what you became of it. This is a very strong message for all the students that you should be wise and be very careful while making choices of the options that you have in your life. Because your future depends on the choice that you make today. Dear students, the poem is over. Please read the poem. I think you got an idea about the theme of the poem. Be familiar with the theme of the poem. Do the given homework and send it in the group. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much.
The road not taken. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry, I could not travel both. And be one traveller, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that the passing there had borne them really about the same, and both that morning equally lay in leaves, no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference.